This is the Good Government Show.
You know, one of the things that people say here at these conferences all the time is how great it is to be mayor and how much of an honor it is, and it's absolutely true. I mean, it is probably the coolest gig I'll ever have in my life. We talk a lot about people, planning, and partnerships. It sounds cliche, but that's really what it is. It's trying to create these partnerships to be able to get things done because we recognize we can't do it on our own. We are the largest metropolitan statistical area in the United States that has to drive as far as we need to get on a plane. It's 80 miles is the closest place. We need to treat each other as real people. I think it's easy to look at any level of government and just treat somebody like a caricature. I just want to be a good person and do good stuff, and we need more people who just want to be good people and do good things running for office.
Welcome to the Good Government Show. I'm your host, Dave Martin. On this episode, we're meeting the mayor of Dubuque, Iowa, Brad Cavanagh. If you live in Dubuque, you've probably met him by now. Mayor Cavanagh says being a mayor is probably the best job in government. He explains that as mayor, he goes to Washington and meets with national leaders, but he also meets citizens every day, like at his son's Little League games. I'm plugged in at different levels that most people are not, he explains. And by the way, for you baseball fans, the Field of Dreams baseball field is just about a half an hour down the road, you know, in the Iowa cornfields. Anyway, Dubuque contributed to the building of the field, so they're sister cities, I guess. Anyway, we talk about the city of almost 60,000 people, and that's where Mayor Cavanagh has been the mayor for almost 3 years. The city is a regional center on the Mississippi River, the masterpiece on the Mississippi, Dubuque is known as, and I'll let the mayor explain that. A former social worker, Mayor Cavanagh explains why his solutions-oriented background translates to delivering good government to his city. You're going to hear about people, partnerships, and planning. This is the mayor's essential guide for moving the city forward. And I learned something new. Well, I learned a lot new about Dubuque and about Iowa, but I learned the city's unofficial sandwich is, write this down, it's a turkey and dressing sandwich. I'll let the mayor explain this. It sounds interesting. Anyway, I'll have my conversation with Mayor Brad Cavanagh of Dubuque, Iowa, coming up right after this. The Good Government Show is sponsored by Ourco. That means our community. Ourco has found a way to make government more effective. Ourco provides the OUR platform, and this is an app that blends in-person and digital interactions to connect people with their government, their county, their town, their state. The Ourco app transforms meaningful conversations into reliable data. They can turn results into projects and programs the community has essentially already approved. It's sort of like a flash poll by phone, but without the call and in real time and wherever community members are. Maybe they're at their house or their office or where they're out just talking about local issues. Maybe the choice is between putting in more local buses or expanding the bike lanes. Ourco can get you an answer immediately. With OUR, you can engage your citizens or any group, learn what they want, and build programs and policies that advance your county, your job creators, your constituents. So visit ourco.com, that's OURCO.com, and learn how they do it. And while you're there, book a demonstration. Welcome to the Good Government Show. I'm happy to have Brad Cavanagh, the new mayor, actually, of Dubuque, Iowa.
Yeah.
A year?
New enough, actually. This is my third year. So
this is your third year?
2.5, yeah.
2.5. How's it going?
It's great, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. You know, one of the things that people say here at these conferences all the time is how great it is to be mayor and how much of an honor it is, and it's absolutely true. I mean, it is probably the coolest gig I'll ever have in my life.
You think?
I really do, actually. No matter what I decide to do next,
President, senator, nothing's going to top this.
You know,
you're in Iowa. You're in Iowa. Come on.
I don't know about any of those titles.
You get a leg up on the rest of America.
Yeah, right. But you know, I do think it is. One of the things that's great about working as the mayor and serving in this role is that you actually serve on all the levels, really. Okay. I mean, you work with the federal government on a regular basis. You work with your state government on a regular basis. You shop at the same grocery store that all your constituents shop at. Everybody is, so you're plugged in on all levels in a way that I don't think anybody else gets the opportunity to do. So I really do appreciate that about the role.
Tell me about Dubuque. Give me the travel version of why to come to Dubuque.
You know, one of the first things I always tell people is, you know, when you think of Iowa, what do you think of? And most people are going to say corn, and they're going to say flat. You know, that's what they're thinking of. And I usually joke, no, that's Nebraska. It's not, but it is parts of Iowa. But where we are is a really interesting place geographically. So we're right where Illinois and Wisconsin come together on the map with Iowa. We've got a bridge going to both states.
Okay.
And we're in what they call the driftless region. So it's where the glaciers didn't reach. And we actually have these towering bluffs all along the Mississippi River. And our downtown is built down below a bluff. So we've got this big bluff on top. There's houses built up there. It's the oldest city in Iowa. So it's actually it's just a beautiful historic place, and it has beautiful natural resources and, you know, natural scenery, and some of the best views of the Mississippi River you're ever going to see in the United States. So it really is a very cool place. You know, it's a town of about 60,000 people, about 100,000 in the surrounding area. We went through a major population drop back in the 1980s. We had two major employers, John Deere. Their construction and forestry division is headquartered in Dubuque. And then we also had a Dubuque packing company, so meat packing plant.
Okay.
Those two were the main employers for so many people. And when they saw tough times at the same time, they had to do major layoffs, and our population just left. A whole generation of people just left Dubuque. And we haven't...
You stayed?
And well,
Are you
no,
born and raised?
No, I left. I actually did. No, I am born and raised. So I was born in Dubuque. My mom worked for John Deere at the time that this all happened, and we did have to move. We moved to a small town south of Dubuque for a number of years. Came back. I graduated from high school in Dubuque, but when I graduated, it was 1996. I just didn't see any opportunity for myself there, and I left. I took off. I was gone for a good 12 years. My wife and I spent some time in St. Louis. While I was gone, Dubuque became cool. And, you know, we kept seeing it.
How did
when
it
we came
become
back.
cool?
We had visionary leaders who did some really important things. One of the most important things that people did was they turned around and looked at the river and said, "Oh, there's a river here. We should highlight it. We should spend more time near it. We should build a riverfront."
Now, I hate to interrupt you, but I'm looking at your business card. It says the city of Dubuque, masterpiece on the Mississippi.
Yeah, they came up with that during that time.
Okay.
And I believe it. I think it's true.
Good PR.
It's great PR, and we have great PR people in Dubuque.
And is it the masterpiece on the Mississippi?
Yeah, it really is. It's a beautiful spot. We have seen incredible growth. You know, one of the things we say a lot is that we've been punching above our weight for a long time.
Okay.
And for the last 20 years, really, we have seen this incredible growth in economic development and recognizing things like the assets that we have, the historic nature of who we are, the Mississippi. All this is great for tourism, but it's really great for the people who live there and want to call it home. So it's an exciting place.
Tourist destination?
We are, yeah. So one of the things that has happened recently is we've had a whole lot more riverboats that are coming up and down the Mississippi. Okay. Viking was kind of a Kickstarter for a lot of this. So Viking built a cruise ship on the Mississippi,
right.
And they now go from New Orleans all the way up to near St. Paul. And then other companies have jumped in too. American Cruise Lines is another great example. And we have regular stops of major riverboats that we haven't seen in my entire lifetime, all of a sudden stopping there.
Have you taken a riverboat cruise?
I have not a good one like this. These are really good riverboat cruises.
I understand that there have been problems in past summers with water levels on the Mississippi. Has that affected you?
Yeah. In fact, it's affecting us right now. I think the flood stage.
Some of the ships couldn't get through.
Yeah, I think we're at 20 feet right now, and flood stage I think around 14. So 17 I think. So we're up there, and and it's happening right now. So last year was the third highest flood in our history since we built a flood wall, and our flood wall held really well. So we're doing okay on that end of it. But the Mississippi is a temperamental waterway. It's going to do what it wants to do, and we have to live with it. So it does affect that industry a little bit.
So as mayor of the masterpiece on the Mississippi, where shipping and that kind of cruise and travel industry is important, what can you do to help?
Well, with from the tourist standpoint in that industry, I think some of the things that we're doing is we make sure that that's a part of who we are. We make sure it's a part of our identity. So we've created real partnerships with our Convention and Visitors Bureau. We call it Travel Dubuque. and they are really doing incredible work to be able to bring people to the region. I didn't even mention this part yet, but the Field of Dreams is about 25 minutes from my house. So Dyersville is one of the places that's really close to Dubuque. We share that project in a lot of ways. In fact, the city of Dubuque actually gave money to the city of Dyersville, which you don't see very often, to be able to build a permanent stadium at this spot.
Have you been there and played baseball or watched the city game?
It's incredible to go.
They had the All-Star game there a few years ago, right?
No, they had. We've had 2 Major League Baseball games there, and they're like, they bring tears to people's eyes. That's what this experience is like. I'm not even kidding.
Who plays there
really
regularly?
So right now we have this summer 450 youth baseball teams coming in and playing an exhibition game at the Field of Dreams, and then also playing tournaments all over the region.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
It is another big draw for from a tourism standpoint. But really this kind of gets to the key. Your question gets to the key of pretty much everything that we're doing in Dubuque. It's all about, we talk a lot about people, planning, and partnerships. It sounds cliche, but that's really what it is.
Okay.
It's trying to create these partnerships to be able to get things done, because we recognize we can't do it on our own. We can't do it as one city of 60,000. We have a lot of things that people might look at as deficits. We don't have an interstate running through. We're not a major channel for that. We've had challenges with airlines and keeping an airline at the regional airport that we have for a city our size.
I read about that a little bit because I did a little bit of Dubuque research.
Yeah.
You had a regular scheduled flight, now you have none.
Right. Well, we have an ultra low cost carrier in
Okay.
a Velo that gets us to Orlando. They're wonderful to work with, but it doesn't fix the problem of commuter traffic, right? This is an interesting problem to have, because we are the largest metropolitan statistical area in the United States that has to drive as far as we need to get on a plane. It's 80 miles is the closest place. So
That's
our
a long time
argument
to get on a
has
plane.
been, it really is. And if you think about what that means for, we have multiple colleges in town. You think about what that means for higher education in college. You think about what it means for recruiting in workforce. The ability to have headquarters there, if you're going to be, for instance, John Deere and all these different places. It's a real challenge, and we are going to fix it.
How are you going to fix it?
Well, we have.
Imagine I'm at a city council meeting and I'm shouting at you.
Yeah,
no,
actually, trust me, I've had this conversation
I'm sure
many
you have.
times.
I'm
It's
sure
one of the
you have.
most things we talk about the most, actually.
Yeah.
So again, back to partnerships. We have a great partnership with the Federal Department of Transportation. We have a small community air service development grant. It's called SCASD. It's a program. It is for towns like us. We don't fit into a program called Essential Air Service, so we don't, which basically, for lack of a better term, forces the airline's hand to make sure that they provide service to a particular community.
Okay.
We don't have that. We were left out of that program years ago, so we have to have these other programs. So we have to come up with minimum revenue guarantees to be able to do it. The SCASD program gives us a grant to be able to have a minimum revenue guarantee. So we have that coming. And
is the traffic there, do you believe? Is
absolutely
the need? Yeah.
Absolutely. The need is absolutely there. We will definitely have the need, and it will remain there. So it is something that is a requirement for a city our size. It's unacceptable that a city our size is not receiving air service in this way, and we've made that known to both our federal government partners and our partners in the airline industry, and we've been a very squeaky wheel about this particular issue.
Do you think you'll have it in your term?
Yes. I think we'll have it this year, actually.
You do?
I do, yeah. I'm very, very confident that we have pushed the boulder up the hill and we are at the top and ready to be able to do this very, very soon.
That's not easy.
Yeah, it has not been. What it's required, though, is, we got everybody around the table.
Did you know anything about the airline industry before
I
you
know a
tackled
whole
this?
lot more than I did before.
But that's got to be part of the fun part of the job. It is. Okay,
Yeah.
today I'm an expert in airlines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, you put different hats on every single day to be able to do that. And your show, I love the name, the Good Government Show. When I think of good government, I think of what we actually did to solve this issue. We brought everybody together at the table who didn't always get along in our community and hasn't always seen the airline industry in the same way, doesn't work with the federal government in the same way, and we put everybody on at the same table weekly. Every single week we sit down and have a meeting, and we hired a great consultant to be able to help us through this process and communicate with the airlines. We've got our airport director, the travel folks, the chamber folks, another economic development organization. Everybody's there, and we fight like a family, we make up like a family, and we get things done, and we are going to solve this problem together because we've decided that's what it takes, and that's how stuff gets done in a city our size.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was youth climate action. Apparently you've got a new grant for this. Tell me about it.
Yeah, this has been a really interesting year for that. I have to thank Bloomberg Philanthropies first and foremost for a lot of this because, they've been paying attention to what we've done in Dubuque. The mayor before me was a gentleman named Roy Buell. He was there for 16 years. When he first ran for mayor, one of the things he ran on was the sustainability platform. And it was before sustainability was a thing everywhere, right?
Okay.
So it was really important to him that we create a sort of a brand in Dubuque because he wanted this to be something that we really stood for and put in everything that we do. So our sustainability office has been around for quite a while, and Bloomberg Philanthropies has taken notice, and they invited us to go to COP28 last year in Dubai, and I had the honor to be able to go there with my sustainability director. Her name is Gina Bell. She's fantastic. And
how'd you like Dubai? A little over the top, isn't it?
Dubai was like nowhere else on earth. It felt like it was. They treated us wonderfully, but it felt like a science fiction movie to me most of the time when we were there. But I have to say, the biggest impact that this had on me was being in the place where everybody that was there, where it was the most important discussions in the globe, and the whole world happening while we were there about how are we going to save ourselves from the things that we have wrought over time, right? And so this gets back to the youth climate action. So from a sustainability standpoint, we've been able to access some grant funding. One of them most recently was from Bloomberg Philanthropies to be able to help youth identify ways in which they want to take action in our community. So we are in the middle of that process right now of gathering grant applications to be able to have some really youth-driven.
Any ideas that surprised you?
I have. So this is one of those places where I haven't been quite as involved, in the process because the process is going on as we speak. But what I am hearing from youth is, they're looking in all directions. They're looking at the places that are closest to them. For instance, like what are we going to do with food in the cafeteria that's all wasted? Because that actually is that's a major contributor to methane gas in a landfill, for example. And to see youth identify
kids
that.
Eat half a sandwich and they get distracted and they throw it away.
What can we do with that, and how can we do it on a larger scale? So every single school in the community, every single college in the community, make them really work together. That was one of the ideas that a young woman floated when we had our initial kickoff, the grant kickoff for that.
Okay.
And then also, youth organizations getting together and being able to do these things together. I didn't realize how many different organizations were actually existing that we could harness to do something about this particular issue. And that's the exciting thing about having a grant like this.
Okay. I understand. Well, your background. You're a professor, a social work professor.
Yes, I was. I no longer teach.
Is
but
this
yes,
a full-time job?
I was. It is the most full-time, part-time job that I've ever had in my life.
You have a city manager?
Yeah, we have a city manager. He's been there for 30 years. He's fantastic. For the last 2 years, my wife and I decided that I was going to treat this more as a full-time position and really try to help shepherd along this change that we've had after having a mayor for 16 years. My wife works full-time in the healthcare industry, works in administration now for a federally qualified health center, and it's been a challenging time for healthcare. So we really we focused on her job and had me do this. We also own a small business on the side too to kind of help with some things too.
But I really do.
Yeah, because I don't have enough to do, right? And when I say full-time, part-time job, it's a full-time time, part-time pay. So it does require a mayor to be able to do something else, in my role.
Okay.
But yeah, going back though, I'm a social worker. That's my background. So
how does being a social worker help you be a better mayor?
I think those skills that I have learned in a 20-year career in social work have been the most useful as I go through this process. I spent a lot of time doing counseling in various different forms when I was practicing in social work before I started teaching full time. And the skills you use when you are listening to someone very well and then summarizing what they've said and being able to really, bring a conversation to a point and move people in a direction that would be more solution focused. Okay. Those are skills that social workers have that I, thankfully have learned that I find very, very useful as we try to solve bigger problems on a larger scale. I think social workers learn how to do this kind of thing in a way that I think is very useful for government roles and elected roles like this one.
So I read about you. You had, when you ran for office, you talked about some things you wanted to get done. You were talking about creating jobs in Dubuque, more housing in Dubuque, and childcare. Yeah. How are you doing on your goals?
Actually, really well. I'm glad you reminded me about these things. Yeah, no, actually really well.
If I do say so myself.
Yeah. Well, again, though, with partnerships. I mean, this is one of those things, because one of the things that was important when I ran, that was important to me, is that I wasn't going to pretend that I'm going to show up and bring things to the table that are now going to be the issue that everybody cares about, right?
Right.
I ran on things that were already things that were very important to people and people were already talking about. And I recognized that what we needed in Dubuque in terms of leadership in that moment was a leader who was going to stand up and take the torch and start to keep running with it and the things that they're already working on. I'll start with housing. We have had incredible success in housing in Dubuque. It surprised me even in what we've been able to pull off. And it was really through encouragement from the economic development agency that we have in our community called the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, and then also from developers themselves coming to the city and saying, hey, we really want to do this work. How can we work with you to be able to create more housing? So we created more incentives. We actually, to get into the weeds for a second, we used things like tax increment financing and tax abatement and looked at them creatively in a way that we could then create housing in the places where we really wanted it and the types of housing that we really wanted. So we asked developers specifically, we said we need housing of all sorts, but we especially need it downtown. We need it to be workforce housing that people can afford. We need low income housing that people can afford. So come and build that stuff here. And they're doing it. We had a study that said we needed 1,100 units.
Many cities across America.
It is.
How were you able to pull it off?
So
better than many.
It was really with those partnerships again. I mean, it was really sitting down with people at the table and saying, what's going to work for you, what's going to work for you, and work for us at the same time, and work for this entire community, and then pulling it off. And we had good data to work with. We knew we needed 1,100 units at least. Like, that's how short we were. So we created these incentives. We rolled out the red carpet and said, come on, let's go. And we had a city council that really didn't we didn't give in when the arguments weren't there that really said that we really shouldn't do housing. So, the idea of not in my backyard is kind of a pejorative term, and I don't like using it because I think people have legitimate concerns in their neighborhood when you're going to build something.
Well, nobody likes change. Nobody likes
and it's hard. And
nobody likes their cheese move.
And we haven't built anything substantially in Dubuque for 20 years.
Okay.
So when people showed up at the meeting, every single time we tried to rezone something or do a development agreement for housing, every single time there were neighbors who were concerned and showed up and spoke about it. But every single time we listened to those concerns respectfully, discussed them fully, and then moved the project forward. So we now have over 2,300 units in the pipeline in some way being built in Dubuque to be able to move housing forward. So the housing piece is going very, very well. It is good government. And it's been I think a really healthy discussion for our community to have. Childcare is another great one. We've had some great success. And this was, again, huge partnerships. There's a nonprofit organization called Dubuque Initiatives that got together and pulled a bunch of different people together and accessed funds, had funds already from the sale of a building that they had, so had funds already, and then accessed more funds, both federally and state. And we actually bought an old building in an industrial park of all places, but a place where there were a lot of workers who needed childcare, and bought this building and then worked with several different partners within the building to basically have different tenants in there, but mainly childcare. It's a huge new childcare center. And then on top of that, we've created a program with funding that comes from employers to be able to pay childcare workers more and recruit more childcare workers into the industry, because we didn't want to just build a new childcare center and then have, you just basically take kids from another childcare center and put them there, and then what happens to this other childcare center, right? So we've kind of come at the problem from both directions, and it really appears to be working. We're in the middle of that process right now, opening the new childcare center. It's open and it's being accessed, and then this new program with funding is actually starting to work.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about your philosophy of government.
Okay.
After you get done with this episode, hear more good government stories with our friends at How to Really Run a City. Former mayors Kasim Reed of Atlanta and Michael Nutter of Philadelphia, and their co-host, journalist and author Larry Platt, talk with guests and other mayors about how to really get stuff done in cities around the nation. Check them out where you're listening now or through their nonprofit news site, thephiladelphiacitizen.org/podcasts. All right, so this is our Good Government Show questionnaire. This gets to the heart of how you really think and feel about government. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
I understand you were a longtime city councilman?
I was a city council member for 2 years, actually.
Oh, 2 years.
Yeah.
And now you've been mayor for 3 years.
For 2.5, yeah.
2.5.
Yep.
I got all my numbers wrong.
There we go.
English major for a reason. All right. From being a city councilman and now mayor, define good government.
I think good government is based on relationships. It's old school politics. It's the way that I think things used to get done when people genuinely respected each other and cared about one another and really did want to try and
so this
create
is the good part of old politics.
Yeah, because there's a lot of good stuff from old politics if you look back in history. You know, I always like to think about the Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill days, right? When you had these two people who were on different sides, but they got along, right? And I was pretty young when that all happened, but I've read about it, so sure. I kind of know what that was like. And you know what I fear is that people haven't seen good government like that for a long time. But what I've learned is that it's all about those relationships. It really is about building relationships with people that maybe you don't totally agree with all the time, but you can agree on some things. You can at least respect each other as human beings. And when you sit down at the table, you're going to get some stuff done.
How do you know if you're doing a good job?
Because you start to see results, and when you see those people that you have those relationships with, you continue to have positive interactions with one another. When I go to Washington, D.C., and I sit down with our congressional delegation, for example, and their staff, we're genuinely happy to see one another. We're glad to be there having this conversation about whatever we're talking about. And then we start to see results from those things. We have federal money that comes our way to be able to build the things we need to build and do the things we need to do. Those results are the things that matter to people most.
If people don't like what they see, what would you like them to do if they don't think they're getting good government? What should they do?
That's where communication really comes in, and I think that what I've tried to do as mayor, and I think I'm being pretty successful with this, and my council is too, is inviting that discussion. If there is a challenge that people have that they don't see what they want to see, I want to hear about it, and I want to actually listen. And actually listen, not just pretend to listen or not just make somebody feel like they're listened to, but actually listen, actually think about it, and then have a real discussion about the pros and cons of whatever argument is being made and move things forward through a real human interaction. You know, I think that's what it really takes.
You're out in town. You mentioned you have a young son.
Yeah.
So are you at the Little League football games and baseball games and doing everything and people stop you?
Going back to the beginning of the conversation. That's one of the things I love the most is that I get to do the same stuff that everybody else does. And they see me everywhere that they go. Obviously, I'm not going to be everywhere all the time, right? No. But there are certain things that I do.
Does it take you extra long sometimes to go to the hardware store?
Yeah, my kids, there are certain events that my children don't love going to with me because they know that I'm going to get stopped along the way, especially outdoor festivals in the summertime.
Sure.
They can't go in there and hang out with me and because I'm going to get stopped to have conversations, which I love, but I can understand that it can be pretty...
Dad, can't we just go?
can we please move forward? Yeah, but it's it really is. That's one of the things I like. I like going and to the grocery store and having somebody stop you and talk about a few things.
You love that.
I actually do. Yeah.
So if you're listening in Dubuque, you could stop the mayor anytime.
It's whether they're listening or not, it's going to happen. So
fair enough. Now that you've been mayor for a little while, what would you like people to know about the job, and what would you like people to know about government and how it works in Dubuque?
First thing I want people to recognize is that I think we need to treat each other as real people. I think it's easy to look at any level of government and just treat somebody like a caricature, some sort of mythological figure who exists there, when really I'm just a person like anybody else, and any elected person is the same. They're a person like anybody else. So we should talk to each other that way. That's how we should treat each other. We shouldn't tweet at each other. We shouldn't yell at each other through the news media or in any other way. We shouldn't treat each other disrespectfully when we see each other. We should work together and just have a real conversation. And then
is it hard to do now?
I at times it can be, yeah. For me personally, it's kind of just my MO, and I try to keep it that way. But I have to consciously think about it. I have to wake up in the morning and recognize that this is what I'm trying to be as an elected person, and I want people to continue to have faith in government. It's really important to me that we rebuild the trust in government in general in the United States.
That'd be nice.
I did not anticipate when I ran for mayor that I would be talking about our democracy so much, but I do, and it's very real. Democracy is going to be saved and sort of refreshed through local government. That's where it's going to happen in the United States.
Well, that was the message at one of the symposiums here.
It's been the message for a while, and it's absolutely true. when you actually look at the polling, I mean, you can see that the level of trust is eroded at so many levels, and it comes through in the action. Congress has not been very functional of late. They have not been able to get a whole lot done, and they'll tell you that themselves. But on the local level, we get something done every time we meet. Every 2 weeks when we have our regularly scheduled meeting, we do real things for real people. And that's where I think we can rebuild that trust. And I think we need to pay attention to that and pay attention to each other and rebuild that trust.
But there's a challenge that you have at the local level, because national election, you get more people to come out and vote. Local election, you get half the voters.
Yeah.
But those are the people who are voting for the people who actually directly affect them more. How do you bridge that?
So much of this is on the candidates themselves.
Okay.
And I say that as somebody who has run. What I recognized is that when I ran and when other people have run and they have done the work, they show up at the community meetings. They literally knock on people's doors and go and talk to them one-on-one. When that work is done, the numbers go up. There's still not going to be the 50% that we see for a presidential election, right, which is still its own problem. But they're better than they were for the previous election when people weren't working very hard. I think that candidates need to be real. They need to get themselves out there. They need to talk to people about what people really want to talk about, even if they disagree with each other. I've stood on multiple. I actually love knocking on doors. I really do. It's kind of a weird thing.
It can be fun.
It's good exercise, running around the neighborhood. But I do love the conversations, and I've had some long conversations. That the campaign managers are going to tell you, don't spend any more than 3 minutes on anybody's front step. 25 minutes later, you're still listening to this person who really wants to give you a piece of their mind about the things they're upset about. And after that conversation, if you can at least look at each other and say, thank you for having a conversation today, you've done something. I mean, I think that's where that trust is rebuilt. But I think the candidates have to do the work, and that really gets people to show up. Outside of that, it is a real challenge. I mean, we don't gather in the same ways we used to. It's not the same that it was before. We're more isolated than we've ever been, and I think that we have to work on that as a society together too.
So, two-part question. First, what's the best part of the job? The
best part of the job is actually being able to help people in a very real way. I'm really satisfied when I feel like I've done something real for someone that is actually very helpful. That's the whole reason I ran. I wanted to do more for my community. I wanted to do more in the world. And when you do that, it's incredibly gratifying.
What's the hardest part of the job?
The hardest part of the job is what I was just describing a minute ago about our lack of trust and our lack of interaction with one another. It's seeing the reality of how unhealthy our democracy really is. It's frightening at times. It's really challenging. It's difficult when it makes it difficult to be able to talk to each other and keep that respect there. So I think that's the hardest part of the job for sure.
So you are a guy who makes news in Dubuque. Where do you get your news? What do you read? What do you look at?
I try to read from both ends of the political spectrum and then stay in the middle most of the time. So I work really hard to get my news from Fox News, because that's where most Republicans get their news, right? It's pretty, I think it's pretty well established. When you look at the where Democrats get their news, it's a little more mixed, but it's something a little bit further on the left. So I generally read I like to read. I don't like watching news very much, and I do listen sometimes, but I don't. Okay. I like to read mostly. So I read Fox News, I read the New York Times and the editorial board from the New York Times, and then I try to go to the AP a lot of times right in the middle, sometimes CNN right in the middle, and try to keep it there. So I look for both ends of the spectrum to see where the ends are, and then try to figure out the news that's a factually based news from the middle. But I'm
not an easy job sometimes.
No, it's not.
Is there still a daily newspaper in Dubuque?
There is. There's a daily, locally owned local newspaper in Dubuque. It is a. It is.
Do you get home
a
delivery?
Huge part. I don't get it in print any longer. I get it on my phone, and I appreciate that. So every day I read it on my phone. Read it this morning.
Just get home delivery. It helps.
Yeah.
Please get home delivery.
Yeah.
I'm an ex-newspaper reporter.
Yeah.
Who's your political hero? Who inspired you to get into politics?
I really appreciated the life story of Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy, I think, he was a complicated figure. he started off, working with Joe McCarthy, for example, on during the whole Red Scare and things that were going on in the 1950s. And then by the time he was running for president, he actually was a champion of civil rights, and in a way that he hadn't been before.
Right.
He was, and what really inspired me most about Robert Kennedy was that he's so very human. He was just, for somebody who could easily be very removed from society, he demonstrated a lot of examples for us about ways to treat people in a very human way and meet people where they are. And that's going back to the social work piece of it, that's something that I learned that I try to take very seriously. You have to go to people where they are in their life and in their experience. You can't expect them to always come to where you're sitting. You got to go to them. And so that he has inspired me, I think, quite a bit. And then there's some local ones too. There's a woman named Terry Goodman who has been involved with city government in Dubuque for a very long time. I have learned more from Terry Goodman in 2 years as mayor than anybody else. Okay. She knows how to get things done. She knows how relationships work.
Does she call you up every once in a while? Now, listen, Brad, we have to talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I listen closely. Terry's one of those people. You have to have those mentors.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
So you have to keep hearing it.
Yeah.
I know you said you started in social work and studied that at college. Did you ever think about going into office? Were you school president?
No. That's one of the things I said a lot. People are like, "Oh, are you always trying to be mayor? Is that something you're always thinking about?" And I'll tell you that the 18-year-old version of Brad would laugh at you if you told him he was going to be the mayor of the town that he was in at that moment. It was not something I thought about. I started thinking about it seriously in graduate school. Actually, it was here in the state of Missouri. I actually went to Jefferson City for a day and did some advocacy for a political science class that I was taking for graduate school. We had to do a policy course in social work school, and I remember that day because I walked into the office. Russ Carnahan was actually my representative in the city of St. Louis. I walked into the office and there were lobbyists all there, that had been sitting and waiting.
Right.
And I came in and said, I'm a constituent and I'd like to speak to Representative Carnahan. He comes running out of his office to come and see me and pulls my wife and I back to the office to have a conversation. And it just clicked in that moment that, oh my gosh, that's the type of access that you can have to your elected representative. Like that's how that's supposed to work. And it sort of began to light a fire in that moment. And then really the moment that I decided to run for something was election night 2016. And what I tell people is the absolute truth of this. It wasn't necessarily which candidate won and which candidate lost in the presidential election of 2016. It was the way it all went down. It felt like I was watching the whole system break right in front of me because there was just nothing but anger and vitriol through that entire election. And I just want to be a good person and do good stuff. And we need more people who just want to be good people and do good things running for office.
That is a great philosophy, by the way. Okay, so Dubuque, the masterpiece on the Mississippi, a tourist mecca for the greater Iowa area. If I'm coming to town, where are you taking me? What are we having? What's the dish of Dubuque?
Oh, the dish of Dubuque, yeah. We've got some great restaurant. Well, actually, there is such a thing. It's called a turkey and dressing sandwich.
Do tell.
It's bread on bread, basically, is what it is. So you take turkey and dressing and put it together, but then you put it on a standard white bun, just a regular old bun, and you put it there and you have it. Everybody's got it at their graduation party. It's what people eat at weddings. It's like the thing in Dubuque. It's so interesting.
I've never heard of this before.
I know. Yeah, it's very, very Dubuque.
It is a turkey dressing sandwich.
Turkey and dressing sandwich, yeah.
Is there little pieces of turkey in there somewhere?
There's turkey in there too. Yeah, there's actual turkey. Yeah, you put that, mix it with the dressing. But the funny thing is a lot of times you eat it and you don't even put anything on it. So it's very bready.
How is it?
I love it. I grew up on it. It's good stuff. Along with that, though, we have some great restaurants.
How often do you have it?
Oh, I don't have it that often.
Okay, all right.
As you get older, you realize you shouldn't really eat that much bread all at once, so it doesn't make you feel very good.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, there's that. There's all kinds of great restaurants in Dubuque. I mean, we have some really good food there. We've got great chefs. So we know our cuisine as well. So we actually do a lot of those things. I'm going to take you to a place called the Fenelon Place Elevator. It is the shortest, steepest railway in the United States. and it was built to go right up the bluff. So you start at the bottom and you just go straight up the bluff, and then you get off at the top. It's a little rail car, and it's just a sort of a dumbwaiter system where the two cars pass one another. Right. It's probably the most popular tourist attraction that we have outside of the river itself and all the great parks we have and things like that. The story with it is a real short version. A guy built it for himself. He worked at a bank, and back a long time ago, early 1900s, built this for himself because he wanted to go home and take a nap in the afternoon after lunch, and he couldn't do it because he had to get the horse and carriage up the hill, and it took too long. So he just built this thing for himself, and they kept it around. Actually had another one in town for a period of time, but it's a great tourist attraction. Beautiful view of the city too when you get to the top.
Okay. The breading sandwich, though.
I really got you stuck on that now.
Yeah, I got to try that. All right, this is the Good Government Show. We always bring it back to good government. Tell me about a good government project that you've created that you're excited about.
So, I'm really excited to get those airlines back because we're going to do it. I think that's been really good government. But we are probably looking at being able to access a major federal grant very soon. And we're very, very excited because it is a major infrastructure project to be able to separate the road from the rail line that is running through our town. We're an old river town, so we've got a rail line coming right through, and we're going to be needing to build an overpass there so we can continue to build the workforce that we need, get people where they need to go. It's right in the middle of a neighborhood that is actually one of our more economically disadvantaged neighborhoods, so we're really excited about projects like that one. But to be honest, for us right now, it isn't just one project in Dubuque. I keep telling everybody, if even just half the things that we're thinking about doing and thinking about happening this summer actually happen, it's going to be a really exciting summer in the city of Dubuque. And I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to do most of what we're trying to do.
Well, I have to say, you have won me over. I never thought about going to Dubuque, Iowa, and now I'm intrigued.
I cannot wait to welcome you. I'll have the turkey and dressing waiting for you.
All right, we will do that. Mayor Brad Cavanagh, Mayor of Dubuque, Iowa, the masterpiece of the Mississippi. Can't wait to check it out. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Where do you get your news from? Where do you get your state and local government news from? Because that's getting harder and harder. And it's essential to stay updated with your community. And it's becoming increasingly important to know what's going on in other cities and states because they're likely facing challenges that you're grappling with too, or you're going to face eventually. That's why we'd like to welcome our new partner, Route 50, to the show. Route 50 is a leading online publication covering state and local governments across the country. They've written about states protecting themselves against the rise in cyber attacks, counties using AI to better support citizen services, local responses to crumbling infrastructure and extreme weather, and much, much more. There's a lot there. It's a one-stop shop for issues affecting state and local governments and their residents. That's you. That's all of us. Do yourself a favor and go to route50.com to see the topics and solutions they cover and learn what other people in government are doing. They also deliver a daily newsletter called Route 50 Today. I see it in my inbox every morning. I check it out, and you should too. Thanks again, Route 50. We're excited to have you on board and being a partner here at The Good Government Show. What is it that county government does? That's the question county commissioners get asked the most, and the simple answer is everything. On the Good Government Show, we're so lucky to have talked with so many county commissioners and other county officials that have shown us how effective county government is. County government dates back to, get this, 1634, making it one of the oldest forms of government in the United States. Think about it. Roads, highways, hospitals, schools, recycling, law enforcement, water, sewers, and most of the county, those services are maintained by the county. That's county government. The National Association of Counties represents all 3,069 counties across the USA. NACo helps county government work better together through things like sharing best practices. When county government works well, that's just good government. The coolest gig I'll ever have in my whole life. That's what we want to hear from the mayor or from any elected leader. We always want to hear good government stories, and putting everyone together to create an efficient and necessary air service, that sounds like good government in action. Oh, and it saves me a 2-hour drive when I visit Dubuque for that turkey and dressing sandwich. Anyway, housing, childcare, and saving the environment, and bringing people together to do it. That's good government, and that's what Dubuque Mayor Brad Cavanagh is working on. Good to hear.
Well, that's our show. Thanks for listening. Please like us and share us with your friends and review us right here where you're listening. And check out our website, goodgovernmentshow.com, for extras. Join us again for another episode right here where you're listening. I'm Dave Martin, and this is The Good Government Show. The Good Government Show is a Valley Park production. Jim Ludlow, Dave Martin, that's me, and David Snyder are the executive producers. Our show is edited and produced by Jason Stershic. Please subscribe, then share us, and like us and review us. That's the best way to make sure we're able to keep telling these stories of our government working for all of us. Then listen to the next episode of The Good Government Show.